Hey friends, happy Wednesday. Hope you all are having a glorious day. It's actually really nice here. However, we do have another chance of frost tonight, so I've been trying to be mindful of that. All the garden beds finished getting cleaned out today. As you guys can see, here's one off the back deck that was wild. I showed you guys. I came out here earlier too. Charlie found a dead butterfly, and that child, she is just so stinking sweet. So she found a dead butterfly and she buried her in my garden. And you guys can see here she added some leaves, a little headstone, and some flowers. So I thought that was very, very kind of her. But all my beds finally got filled. They're looking really, really good. We just keep harvesting off of this one, feeding the rabbits, so I'm just leaving them there while I'm doing that. But the goal is hopefully to get the trellis for the zinnias set up on this bed today. So I just bought this really cheap netting on Amazon. I'll link it below. I want to say, y'all, this was probably like $20. So this is obviously like the cheapest horticulture netting you can find. Now if you're like legit flower farming, there's probably a lot better options for flower trellising that's nicer, obviously going to be more heavy duty and probably last. I'll be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing here, and so I just knew I was going to need some sort of structure, some sort of trellis, and so that's why I decided to just buy this cheap stuff and kind of fill it out and see where we are. Now I have been getting asked a lot of questions. Why would you trellis your flowers? You don't actually need to do that, and just having a lot of people curious about that. And so here I've mentioned we get a lot of straight line winds, and when you're talking about cut flowers, when I've grown zinnias in the past, the stems are kind of all over the place, right? Because just wind and overcrowded or whatever it may be. A lot of times I don't have like that perfect stem zinnia, which for my own, you know, dining room table, that's completely fine. It adds a little character, right? But my goal is to be selling all of these flowers, and so really that plays a huge role in if I can sell them in the price that I can get. You want those straight stems. That's really ideal for selling at the price that I need to sell them at. So the idea by having you know, some sort of trellis system is just to kind of add some support, kind of just help give a little bit of structure with a lot of wind. That way they're not blowing over and things like that, and it also kind of just encourages them to grow in these small little squares, which is going to hopefully, the idea is, make you know, the stems of the zinnias a lot straighter. So there are a few ways you could put up this netting. You can use wooden stakes and kind of put stakes on either side. So my plan, since that bed is so long, I'm going to put two supports in the front, in the middle, and the end. So that'll give me 6 total. You could use like 4-foot T-posts. However, I was really not wanting to have to buy T-posts. It was just an expense I didn't want to have to do. You could use wooden tomato stakes, which is going to cut your cost down. But if you guys can remember all the way back to last summer when I had Tula, we bought electric fence and put an electric fence all the way around the garden because she kept getting in there and digging up all of my things. So I actually have the little prod sticks from that fencing that we aren't using, and so I'm all about being resourceful. I thought, I bet I can make this work, so that's actually what I'm going to use. I'll go grab it and show you guys what I'm talking about. Alright, so here I have it. This is where you would actually just like snap in the wire, the hot wire or whatever. And so I think this is going to work well. Essentially, I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to take the trellis netting and just kind of hook it onto here is my plan. Now this is obviously not an exact science. I am kind of guesstimating how many of these I need based off of the length of my bed. Obviously if you had a shorter bed you wouldn't need as many, or if you're growing, you know, a ton, you may need more for extra support. So you'll have to just kind of play around with that and see what's going to fit your needs best. So as as you guys can see, that was pretty simple. Now that they're pushed in, they're probably about 4 foot tall, which would be equivalent to the 4-foot T-post. So if you have some of this laying around, or maybe even a PVC pipe with some clamps or something, I think you could make this work and get by pretty inexpensive. All right, so this is all kind of a hot mess here. It is just literally rolled up in a big bundle. Trying to spread it out so you guys can see. See those little squares? These squares are actually what I will plant the zinnia in. So it will kind of help me out, especially when it comes to planting. I am going to go ahead and put this down because my zinnias are a bit taller than I would like. So I am going to go ahead and put the trellis up and then plant the zinnias in the square, which is what I would recommend. I think it would just be a lot easier unless you were direct sowing. But if you're transplanting out, I feel like personally it would be easier just to transplant out in these little holes than trying to put this netting on over your established plants. That kind of seems like a mess. All right, here we go. Yeah, so pretty big holes. So after doing this, we've realized that we want it tighter because that is obviously really important. That's the whole point, is that it is adding support to our zinnias. So Nathan's actually gonna grab a couple more, and as to where we just had the 2 at the front, 2 in the middle, and 2 at the end, we're gonna go ahead and add probably 4 more on this half. I'll turn you guys around though so you can see. It just makes it really, really ideal now. We've got it on the smallest one. As the zinnias grow, we'll just continue to move it up. That one actually popped up to the second, so we'll have to fix it. But we can just continue to move the trellis up with the zinnias as they grow. And as you guys can see here, I mean, I'll plant a zinnia every few squares, but there's a lot of zinnias that we can plant in this, which is really, really exciting. So we were actually having some issues with it sagging, and that was actually a really quick fix. So I wanted to show you guys what we did that kind of just eliminated that problem for us. When we were putting up our structure, so whatever structure it is, if you notice that there's like sagging, leaning, we just stuck it on the corner here and pulled it really tight, and that really did kind of help add some tension. But here we go, we just have to cut off the end. And we have plenty, because originally my plan was to do this full bed of zinnias and then this bed down here with zinnias. I don't actually think I grew enough for that. And so this one bed will produce quite a bit. So as you guys can see, we have quite a bit left that we'll just save and reuse. Pretty simple. At the end of the season, you take this up, save this, reuse it. But that took no time at all. I'll bring you some scissors. So I'm actually really pleased at just how easy that was, and knowing that it's just going to, one, be a lot easier for me to plant my zinnias, because that kind of gives me some guidelines, which I prefer. And I just know that it's going to make my zinnias a lot straighter, which is going to be ideal for selling. So that has me really, really excited. I'll show you guys what the zinnias look like in a second. Let me drop off these scissors to Nate. Here you go. Wow, this looks really good, I think. Oh, I wanted to show you guys this too. I was cleaning out the strawberry bed that I had extra onions just thrown in. Check out what I found. Oh, it's hiding. Look at that massive rutabaga. I mean, that is like the size of my hand. Nathan's just letting it get bigger and bigger so I can ferment it, but I think it's probably about time to harvest. Check that out. All right, we've made our way into the greenhouse. I just gave everything a really good drink because it's hot here today. So the greenhouse was getting really, really warm. Everything's looking good. I'm just so like have the itch right now, you know? I'm just ready to be planting. I am like stinking frost, I'm over you. My flowers, like I said, are a little bit, some of them are a little bit taller than I would really prefer, but at the end of the day, I'm not really sure that it matters. Here we have some that are pretty perfect. Like, I think these are really, really good size right here for transplanting out. So all of these, I put this tray backwards. So these are the giant purples, which these are stunning. I'm not sure if y'all have ever, look at the roots coming out of the bottom. Whole trays backwards. Oh gosh, that's harder to do one-handed than I thought. All right, I actually feel like this is full of water because it was pretty heavy. Oh, check this out, guys. That's crazy. That's amazing. So those are all the giant purples. So these obviously won't have grown just a whole lot in the week that they're in here. So I feel pretty good. They all have really, really thick stems and stalks on them. So I'm feeling pretty good that these will be okay. I've been hardening them off, so hopefully they will just transition out into the garden really, really well. And then down here, we've got the cactus zinnia. Now some of these are kind of bigger. When I was just like had everything crowded in here, some of them just really started reaching. You guys can already see here, this one's starting to do a little bit of a curve at the top, and that's just because it's just reaching. So these are not as thick stemmed, and so that's probably just due to an overcrowding issue on my part. But with I think with that support we're still okay. So these are the cactus zinnias. Down here I've got the envy zinnias, which are green. And then what does that say? The northern, I think it's northern giant, northern lights zinnia. I've got 3 rows of those. These are all kind of perfect in my opinion. I think these are really good. I've got some dahlias, some carnations. Then we've got the giant purple again, and then the peppermint are what these are. Oh, and I even have more. I have more cactus fireball zinnias. So those are like your reds, your oranges, and obviously like this guy, I mean, that's really big. So I think, you know, ideally in a perfect world, I would have been putting those out this week, but that didn't happen, and that's okay. I'm not crying over spilt milk, but I do see a strawberry. Oh man, it's almost ready. I was about to yank that strawberry, but it's not quite ripe. Oh well. So I definitely think I have enough zinnias to fill that bed, and then that'll give me a good estimate. I didn't really I didn't map out that bed and grow accordingly. I just kind of estimated in my head based off of like the measurements and how far apart you need to do your zinnias and how big my bed was. I kind of guessed. It wasn't, you know, scientific. It wasn't like down to the T, and that's okay. That's a lot of stinking zinnias. So I feel okay with this. And I also know that like this year, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself, you know. This is something I want to gradually transition into. This is going to be a really good year just to kind of start transitioning, figure out what that looks like. I actually bought Floret Farms, the Cut Flower Garden book. It is a beautiful book, has a lot of really good information. So maybe if y'all are wanting to try to transition into this and you're looking for a reference, I'll link her book below. She's honestly just kind of like made the way for flower farmers. It's been really cool watching her journey on Instagram. It's been really encouraging. And then being able to actually buy one of her books, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. But I also know I'm just giving myself a lot of grace in this season that this is new to me. I'm not gonna get stressed out. I'm gonna try to do, you know, what I can do, and if it doesn't work, then I'll just tweak it next year. So it definitely wasn't exact science as far as how many I planted for that bed in particular. I just kind of guessed. My garlic is doing good and coming up well. These guys I thought were gonna completely die after I had transplanted them. Look, this is Volunteer that came back. This was my cut and come again bed. But these just looked really bad. I thought I had lost most of them, but now they're finally starting to come back. My celery's looking good over here. I'm just actually really impressed with that garlic. Check that out. Alright guys, we have got a storm a-brewing. I'm telling you, this weather, it was no storm in sight, no storm on the forecast. Woke up super sunny, super pretty. Came out here, start doing stuff. The wind's kind of going crazy. Now I see all these rain clouds. It's starting to thunder, so I'm about to wrap some stuff up and go inside. I certainly don't want to get wet. I hope that this video helped you maybe answer some questions as to why I'm choosing to trellis my zinnias. Maybe if you're in the same situation and you think adding this extra support would help, I would do it. You guys saw how quick that was. You can pretty much use whatever type of material you have laying around your house. It doesn't have to be super fancy. And you may have T-posts laying around, which is a really good option. But if you don't, certainly use what you have. I will link this netting below. Like I said, we just got the cheapest stuff off of Amazon. You can obviously get a higher grade, you know, and it will probably last longer and be better, but this seems to be working well. I'll give you guys kind of a follow-up video mid-season, end of season, and do a better review on how I like it. So far, pretty easy to put up, but thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll talk to you soon.